One of the issues that probably gets less concern or less attention is this idea of sound and noise that's created on the site that we're working on, mostly because we may not have visited the site prior to some initial planning of it. And that points out the need to actually physically visit the site and pay attention to things that are going around in the environment. Different times of day at the site have different noise levels, and those can significantly impact the quality of what you design and develop there. For instance, a roadway and the relationship of an outside patio or courtyard, and whether the simplest idea is it oriented to pick up noise or to shelter the noise from it. And those can be in conflict with things like the sunshine and the solar orientation. So in this graphic, we have one of the predominant issues that we have with sound on site, and that's from vehicular traffic, and a relatively old graphic because we've got looks like a 1940s automobile here. But the important takeaway here is this idea of physically separating the distance. The further we are away from the sound source, the lower the intensity of sound will be. So if we can, we want to locate sound sensitive amenities and features of a building as far away from possible of the noise source. And many times we can't do that, so we have other ways of intervening. One of them is to construct sound barriers. So these can be just like in the interior of our buildings, sound absorbing surfaces and sound deflecting surfaces. So we have this idea of a fence creating a noise shadow. And you can see that idea of a little bit of a refraction of the sound over that fence. So the height needs to be really quite extreme in order to create the proper kind of shading that we want. But we see these many times along the road. In this case, this illustration brings up another point that comes along with these types of devices, is this lack of transparency and the kind of degradation of the environment on either side of what is a visual barrier. So there are other ways of dealing with that by vegetating it, the possibility of increasing the ability to absorb sound and enhance the built environment to create cooler surfaces for natural cooling, habitat for native species. So there's plenty of places where we can start to intervene and think about in the layout of our site to control what could be obnoxious or undesirable sounds. And conversely, we could want to enhance positive sounds, the sound of wind through trees, birds and habitat type of thing. And this idea of sound control is really quite advanced, and we will have available to us, not in this lab, but in the future in the way we use our BIM modeling tools and our parametric programming, the ability to analyze sound just as we would light in a room, as we did in our first project. So here we have just something to help plant an idea of how this could work in a project you might be doing. We have a noise source. This could be a roadway. It could be a cooling equipment or something undesirable. And sound analysis points out that it happens that the opening between the building and the source ends up acting like a sound collector, driving sound into the space, kind of amplifying it. And so a physical facade change of necking down this opening and creating new kinds of reflections could create greatly enhanced, quieter spaces within that. So just a brief introduction to noise and sight, but one I hope that you'll always keep in mind going forward with your initial site design.